So my friend booted up Lords of the Fallen yesterday right after it updated, and pretty quickly into his gameplay he noticed that there was some weird shit going on with Eye of the Pale Butcher. He wasn't sure exactly what was going on, but as for what it looked like, it's more or less this. The case as well. I'm gonna launch one right here.
Let me just do it.
Oh, wow.
No way!
What?
You got it! First try on the boss.
So while we got going on our next New Game Plus run, I sat down to help him figure out what was going on. Because after figuring out the exact details of what's going on, I looked around to see if there were any other videos covering this just before I made it. And there's only one, but it's a guy covering a build and he's trying to gleefully exclude that this is a bug, and he's trying to play it off like the build will function similarly without this bug. And he didn't really have a clue, frankly. So here's what's actually happening. Eye of the Pale Butcher. Someone's gonna probably say that it works with Eye of Olorin. It doesn't. The reason why this is specific to Eye of the Pale Butcher and how this is even working to begin with is more or less Eye of the Pale Butcher used to have a secondary socket description that said regain Soulflay charge while in Umbral. And what that would do is recharge your Soulflay charges simply while you were in Umbral. Every second you gained a fraction of your Soulflay charge back. But with yesterday's patch, this changed. Now, Eye of the Pale Butcher, the secondary socket description says it adds 25% damage to an enemy soul. So what it should be doing is making it so when you soulflay a target, you just deal 25% more damage. Fortunately, they screwed up big time. Now instead what it is doing is it is adding 25% damage, presumably every second, while you are in Umbral. That is why, if you look around and you see clips of people one-shotting bosses with this shit, it's always in Umbral, and it's always on a soulflayed target. Though it doesn't necessarily have to be Umbral, and I'll explain that in a moment. But more or less, every second you spend in Umbral while you have this eye socket equipped is going to increase the damage you deal to a soulflayed target. But, as I mentioned before, it doesn't necessarily have to be an Umbral, because like soulflay charges don't disappear when you exit the Umbral, meaning that, exactly like the previous function of the eye, the damage buff stays, which is absurd, but it makes for some very funny moments. In essence, the TLDR, Eye of the Pale Butcher, while in Umbral, gives you a 25% damage bonus to soulflayed targets every second. When you leave Umbral via an exit, that damage bonus stays. But again, remember, it's only to soulflayed targets. If you rest, you will lose your damage bonus. If you completely die, you will lose your damage bonus. But the damage scales so quickly that I don't think it's something you really need to give a shit about. The other important thing to note is soulflayed targets do not include all bosses. There are bosses that can't be soulflayed. Just an example is Sundered Monarch. So this only works to your benefit on a target that can actually have its soul ripped. So while phase 1 of the Judge Cleric will work, phase 2 will not. And then that's it. If you see anyone making a build video that shows Pale Butcher's Eye on a soulflayed target, tell them to suck a dick.
Remember the sparrow.
Oh, I did not. I did not.
The timing.
That was unfortunate, to say the least.